court documents in the case of the people of the state of California versus David Anthony Burke revealed this entire situation is much worse than any of us ever thought. Now, I read through the 9-page preliminary brief, so you didn't have to. Let's get into it. So it all started on September 8th, 2025, with tow yard employees making a shocking and horrifying discovery. They opened a Tesla that had flies and a strong odor coming from it. Now, a lot of people were like, David probably wasn't even the last person to drive the car, all this stuff. Well, surveillance footage confirmed that David was, in fact, the last person to drive the vehicle before he left for his tour. Now, the car was parked 400 feet from his home when it was towed. So anyway, they popped the trunk and saw this black cadaver bag that was covered in insects. And when they opened it up, they discovered a severely decomposed head and torso. And in another bag, they found dismembered arms and legs. Celeste's pinky finger and ring finger had been cut off, and body identification was done using her dental records because of how badly her body was decomposed. Now, David met Celeste in 2022 when she was only 11 years old, and he began sexually assaulting her when she was 13 and he was 18. She was reported missing in April 2024, and when she was first reported missing, David said that he talked to her in February and claimed that he didn't know that she was a minor, and that was a lie, and a lie that he told multiple times. He even contradicted himself because he showed deputies a yearbook photo that he had of Celeste in his phone. So how do you have a yearbook photo of her, but then you claim that you don't know that she was a minor? Okay. Now, Celeste eventually returned home, and her parents took her cell phone as a consequence for running away. And despite knowing that she was only 13 years old, David drove to where Celeste lived and paid a middle school student in her class $1,000 to deliver her a phone so he could stay in contact with her. Grown man, by the way. Now, throughout 2024, Celeste spent summer weekends in David's home and traveled with him to Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. Yes, the same family that refused to testify. Okay. Now, messages between David and Celeste referenced sex, pregnancy, abortion, and the use of Plan B. And there were also multiple explicit photos of Celeste that corroborated the assault. Now, prosecutors say that it is likely that Celeste was murdered on April 23rd, 2025, and they know this by piecing a few things together, right? On April 22nd, 2025, David and Celeste had a really bad argument because Celeste was angry that David was sleeping with other women despite telling her that he wanted to be with her and build a life. She became upset and then threatened to expose him for being a predator. Keep in mind that David's first studio album was scheduled to be released on April 25th, 2025. Okay. He also had multiple product collabs at this time with brands like Crocs, Hollister, and Fortnite. So on the night of April 23rd, 2025, David sent an Uber to take Celeste from her house to his house. And it was a 90-minute ride, and the two of them stayed in constant communication. And this is where this man might have thought he was some sort of criminal mastermind because he premeditated everything, which was evident because despite Celeste being dropped off at his home at 10:10 p.m., he sent a message to her phone at 10:30 p.m. asking where she was. The fact of the matter is that by the time that he sent this text, Celeste was already dead. And the way he killed her and then tried to cover up her murder was horrible. Gruesome. He stabbed her multiple times and stood by while she bled out. And then immediately after the murder, David drove to Santa Barbara County to dispose of Celeste's belongings and try to destroy all the evidence. And as he was doing this, he sent a text to her phone again asking where she was, despite knowing that she was already dead. Now, the following morning, he did a radio interview about his upcoming album release, and that day he sent 2 more texts to her phone. They went unanswered because, again, she was already dead. Now, he never contacted her again after April 26, 2025. And despite her family asking where she was, he kept lying and saying he did not know. Now, David went to extreme lengths to cover up this murder. To discard her body, David placed her in an inflatable pool to prevent blood from getting on his garage floor and then used a chainsaw to dismember her. Now, there were small blue plastic fragments found embedded in her body, okay? And investigators were able to make a direct match of the fragments to a pool that David purchased through Amazon. And remember how I told you that he cut off her pinky finger and her ring finger? Well, he did that because her ring finger had a tattoo of his name on it, okay? And her fingers were never recovered. Some of the tools that he used to murder her and then try to cover it up were purchased through Amazon and Postmates. He ordered 2 chainsaws, a burn cage, a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable pool to his home through Amazon, and then he ordered a shovel through Postmates. And he made these purchases using a fake name. The fake name was Victoria Mendez. Now, throughout the month of May, he made trips to an isolated site. Celeste's passport was found near that isolated site by a worker. And as time passed and Celeste's dismembered body lay decomposing in his car, his family, friends, and business associates noticed a strong smell of decay around his house and vehicle, but did not call the police. And before leaving for his tour, David parked the vehicle up the street around the corner from his house, and it was subsequently towed. Now, during a search of his home, investigators found evidence which included evidence consistent with the dismemberment of Celeste's body in the inflatable pool, which had multiple linear cuts cuts, as well as several biological samples that tested positive for blood. The medical examiner ruled that Celeste died from 2 penetrating injuries to the torso. Now, David is scheduled to appear in court for a preliminary hearing on May 26, 2026, and this is a developing story, and I'll do my best to keep you updated as more information becomes available.